চলো আমরা স্টার্ট করব ভিটিপি। ওকে,
ওকে স্যার।
চলো। ভিটিপি stands for VLAN trunking protocol. If it is asked what is VTP or the definition of VTP, you have to answer these points. Okay, it is a Cisco proprietary protocol. It is a layer 2 protocol. By default, VTP is enabled in all Cisco switches. What is the purpose of VTP? Hello?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
What is the purpose of VTP?
VTP used for we have multiple VLAN in a switch that we can transfer it another switch by VTP protocol.
It is used to propagate VLAN database information. Okay,
Yes sir.
it is used to centralized VLAN management. It uses multicast MAC address 01000 CC So this is what is VTP. Okay,
Yes sir.
if you ask what is VTP or tell me something about VTP, start with these points. Okay, clear?
Yes sir.
VTP stands for VLAN trunking protocol. It is a Cisco proprietary protocol. It is a layer 2 protocol. By default, VTP is enabled in all Cisco switches. It is used to propagate VLAN database information. It is used to centralized VLAN management. It uses multicast MAC address 0100.0ccc.ccccc. Okay. So what does VTP do for us? Suppose this is switch 1, this is switch 2, and this is switch 3. switch 1, switch 2, switch 3. And these are trunk links, okay?
Okay, sir.
So we have some users in switch 1, switch 2, switch 3. And all these users belongs to VLAN 10, 20 and VLAN 30, okay? So in first step we have to create VLAN 10, VLAN 20, VLAN 30 in switch 1. Then we have to move switch 2, and again manually we have to create VLAN 10, 20 and 30 in switch 2.
Yes, sir.
And then we have to create VLAN 10, 20 and 30 in switch 3 again. Now consider you have 100 or 200 switches in your enterprise network, okay?
Yes, sir.
So creating VLANs in every switches after logging from console or after getting access from telnet or SSH is a tedious job, okay?
Yes.
That's why we need VTP. That's why we need VTP. So now discuss how VTP works or how does VTP help us, okay? We create VLAN 10, 20 and VLAN 30 in switch 1 manually.
Yes.
We get access of switch 1 either via console or remote access via telnet or SSH. We create VLAN 10, 20 and 30 in switch 1 manually. Now VTP propagates this VLAN information from switch 1 to switch 2 via this trunk link, through this trunk link, okay? This VLAN database information propagates from switch 1 to switch 2 through trunk link with the help of VTP.
Yes.
Now switch 2 updates is VLAN database from the VTP message it has been received from switch 1. Now in switch 2's VLAN database we have VLAN 10, 20 and 30. Sorry. Now switch 2 propagates this information through trunk link to switch 3. Now switch 3 updates this VLAN database information from this update. So we have a point, it is used to propagate VLAN database information, okay?
Yes.
So this is how VTP is used to propagate VLAN database information from switch 1 to switch 2 and then switch 2 to switch 3.
Yes.
Now we have another point, it is used to centralize VLAN management. We create VLAN in switch 1 only. We create VLANs 10, 20, 30 in switch 1 only.
Yes.
but this information is propagated by VTP through trunk link to every switches in our L2 network.
Yeah.
So now the VLAN management is centralized. Whatever we create in switch 1, whatever we change in VLAN database in switch 1, VTP propagates that information to another switches, and another switches updates their VLAN database with that particular information. Okay?
Yes. But sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
If I delete a VLAN from switch 1,
Yes.
and switch 2 and switch 3, both VLAN will be removed.
Yes. If you delete VLAN 10 from switch 1, that is, you are changing the VLAN database. You are updating your VLAN database by removing VLAN 10 from switch 1. VTP
Yeah.
propagates this information to switch 2. VLAN 10 will be deleted from switch 2. After updating its database, switch 2 propagates that message to switch 3. VLAN 10 will be deleted from switch 3's VLAN database also. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So, what we see that VLANs are created in one switch manually, and other switches dynamically update their VLAN database with that information, which is carried by VTP. And you know, if we delete a VLAN from one switch, VTP will propagate that information, and as a result, that particular VLAN will be deleted from all other switches in your layer 2 network. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So now, clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Now, VTP requirements. That means what we need for VTP to work properly. Okay.
Yes, sir.
The first is trunking must be enabled between switches. That means we need
Trunk.
trunk link to propagate VTP messages. Without trunk link, VTP messages cannot propagate. Okay?
Yes, sir.
That's why its name is VLAN trunking protocol. Clear?
Yes, sir.
VTP domain name must match we'll discuss about domain. Okay? What is domain? What is VTP domain name must we'll discuss. And VTP
Sir, if I configure VTP without domain,
yeah.
it will be work properly.
No. VTP password must match. But it is an optional parameter, okay?
Yes, sir.
It is a optional parameter. That means if you configure password, VTP password in one switch, then you have to configure that particular password in every switches of your L2 network. But if you cannot, if you do not configure VTP password, no problem. Then do not configure VTP password in other switches also. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we have three major requirements for VTP to work. Trunking must be enabled between switches. VTP domain name must match. VTP password match, which is an optional parameter also. Okay. Now let's see. Switch 1, switch 2, switch 3 and switch 4. Now first, what is domain? What is domain? If we define domain, technically, it defines group of devices under a single administration. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Domains defines that group of devices under single administration. So consider switch 1, switch 2, switch 3, switch 4 all have same domain name. That is, domain name is Cisco. And the links between these switches are all
Trunk link.
trunk link. Now if you create VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 in switch 1, VTP will propagate this message through trunk link from switch 1 to switch 2.
Yes.
Switch 2 receives that message and it sees that it is coming from a switch which is in same domain that it have. It will update its VLAN database. Switch 2 propagates this message to switch 3 through this trunk link. Switch 2 receives this message and it also sees that it is coming from a switch that is in same domain, Cisco. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And the same thing happened with switch 4. Because all these switches have same domain name, so when switch 1 creates VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 in its VLAN database, VTP propagates this message through trunk link,
Mm-hmm.
and all the switches having the same domain name will update their VLAN database with that information. Okay,
Yes, sir.
clear? Any doubt?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, consider a different scenario. Switch 1 and switch 2 have same domain name Cisco, and switch 3 and switch 4 have domain name something different, like suppose CCNA. Okay,
Yes, sir.
and these are trunk link. I am mentioning trunk link every time because trunk link is important criteria for VTP to work. Okay. Now switch 1 clears VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. VTP propagates this message through trunk link to switch 2. Switch 2 receives this message and see it is from same domain that switch 2 has. So it updates its database with this particular information. Now, after updating its own database, switch 2 propagates this message, this information through trunk link to switch 3. After receiving this message, switch 3 says that it is from different domain. My domain is CCNA and it is coming from a different domain, that is Cisco. So switch 3 will not accept this VTP message. It will discard the message. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So switch 3's VLAN database will not updated by this information. Now switch 4 create VLAN 30, VLAN 40, same way VTP propagates this message information through trunk link to switch 3. Switch 3 receives it and verify the domain name. And it says that it is coming from a domain CCNA and my domain is also CCNA. So switch 3 receives and updates this VLAN database with that information. Now switch 3 also have VLAN 30 and VLAN 40 in its VLAN database. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Switch 3 also propagates this information through trunk link to switch 2, but switch 2 will discard because of different domain name, because this message is coming from different VTP domain name. So switch 2 will not update its VLAN database with this information. As switch 2 discards this message will not propagate from switch 2 to switch 1. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Keep it in mind that till the domain name is configured, VTP will not propagate VLAN database information. In our last classes, we see that we have to configure VLANs in every switches. Why? Because VTP domain name is not configured. So till the VTP domain name is configured, VTP will not propagate VLAN database information. You have to configure VTP domain name. Only after that VTP starts working. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Now we have VTP versions, VTP version 1, VTP version 2, VTP version 3. And we have VTP modes. What are those modes? VTP mode server, VTP mode client, and VTP mode
Transparent.
transparent. These modes are basically based on VTP version 1 and version 2. Okay. So now we will discuss about modes. One by one, we will discuss about modes. Up to this point, clear?
Sir, what is the difference between VTP version 2 and 3?
We will discuss later.
Okay.
Once we have completed the entire VTP, we will discuss. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now start with VTP mode server. We can add, remove and edit VLANs in this mode. Okay.
Hmm.
It is default mode in some Cisco switches. Okay.
Hmm.
It can generate VTP updates. It works as a relay agent also. It can create normal range VLANs. It stores VLAN database in its flash memory. In VLAN.dat file. Okay. So these are the some basic characteristic of VTP mode server. Okay. Clear? Hello.
Hello.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
So we have switch 1, switch 2, switch 3. And this link are trunk link. All these links are trunk link. Okay.
Trunking.
So now we create VLAN 10 and 20 in switch 1. VTP update message will propagate this information from switch 1 to switch 2. After receiving this message, if we consider all these switches are in same VTP domain, switch 2 receives that message and updates its VLAN database with the same information. And it will update this information to switch 3, and switch 3 will do the same. Updates his VLAN database with same information. That means now switch 1, switch 2, switch 3 all have same VLAN information in its VLAN database. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So see, switch 2 here works as a relay agent. After receiving the message, after receiving the VTP update message from switch 1, switch 2 first updates its own database and relay that message to switch 3. Clear? So here we have a point, it works as a relay agent also. That means this switch 2 will relay the information through trunk link to another switches. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Any doubt?
No, sir.
And all these switches are in server mode.
Default.
Yeah, default server mode. Or we have configured it in server mode. The main thing is all these switches are in server, Vtp server mode. Okay.
That means switch 2 and switch 3 can be deleted within 10 or 20.
Yes, that is the point where I am coming. That is, if you asked, why do we need client mode, switch in Vtp? Consider anyone deletes VLAN 10 from the VLAN database in switch 3. VLAN 10 is deleted. Now switch 3, there is an update message from switch 3, Vtp update message from switch 3 to switch 2. And we know all these three switches are in same Vtp domain. Switch 2 receives that update message and updates its own database. It also deletes its VLAN 10 from VLAN database.
Yes.
It will forward this update message to switch 1. After receiving this update message, switch 1 also deletes its VLAN 10 from its VLAN database. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, consider there are some users in VLAN 10 in switch 1, switch 2 and switch 3. Now, VLAN 10 is deleted. VLAN 10 is nowhere in switch 1, switch 2 and switch 3 in VLAN database.
Yes,
and
sir.
we know the users of VLAN 10 now cannot communicate with each other. The users of VLAN 10 cannot communicate with each other because their switch port is a member of a VLAN that doesn't exist. Clear?
Yes, sir. Sir, repeat it again.
Yeah?
Repeat it again.
Consider there are end users in switch 1, switch 2 and switch 3. Those are belong to VLAN 10. Now those users cannot communicate with each other. because their switch port is a member of that VLAN which doesn't exist in VLAN database.
Yes.
Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
In VLAN database, there is no VLAN 10,
Hmm.
but the ports are member of VLAN 10. That's why we need client mode switch, VTP client mode switch. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, what is VTP client mode? It cannot add, remove or delete or edit VLANs. Okay?
Yes, sir.
It can receive VLAN information from server mode switch and updates its own VLAN database with that information. Clear?
Yes, sir.
It works as a relay agent like server mode switch. It can have only normal range VLANs. It stores its VLAN database in flash memory in VLAN.dat file. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So we have switch 1, switch 2 and switch 3. And these links are trunk link. Switch 1 is in server mode,
Hmm.
switch to in client mode, and switch to is in client mode also. And all these switches have same VTP domain name. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now switch 1 creates VLAN 10 and VLAN 20.
Hmm.
VTP propagates this message from switch 1 to switch 2. As the domain name are same in switch 1 and switch 2, switch 2 update its database with this information.
Hmm.
And switch 2 also propagates this message to switch 3.
Yes, sir.
Because of having same domain name, switch 3 receives and updates its VLAN database with this message information.
Hmm.
Now if anyone gets access of switch 3's console, he cannot delete VLAN 10. He cannot delete VLAN 10. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Because the command is not supported in client mode. If you type no VLAN 10, what is the command to delete a VLAN? No VLAN 10 in config mode. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Basically this command is not supported in client mode switch. The command is rejected. As we know that in client mode, in VTP client mode, switches have no privilege to add, remove or edit VLANs. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So that's why we need VTP client mode switch. Now,
Sir, we can see the domain name or password in a client mode.
we can see
We can see the password and domain name in a client switch.
or set.
We can see
Yeah.
if we change it to client mode to server mode, then
There is a problem for that. I will see. I will discuss you about that. Now, the third question is, why do we need transparent mode? Switch in VTP. Okay,
yes, sir.
we'll discuss each and everything, drawbacks, advantages of different versions. Okay.
Hmm.
Now the question is, why do we need transparent mode switch in VTP? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Consider we have some servers in switch 2 in VLAN 10. Server 1 and server 2. And all the users of this layer 2 network, all the end users of this layer 2 network are receiving different services from these two servers. Okay, both the server in VLAN 10. Now, consider an attacker attach a switch 4. It is from an attacker to switch 3. Connects this switch with switch 3 and make this link trunk link. Attacker knows the Vtp domain name and make it server switch. Okay?
Yes.
And the attacker executes the command no VLAN 10. In switch 4. What will happen? Same domain name. Vtp propagates this message to switch 3. Switch 3 updates its database from this information that VLAN 10 is deleted. Switch 3 forwards this message to switch 2.
Yes.
Switch 2 updates its database with that information that VLAN 10 is deleted, and switch 2 forwards this message to server, which also updates its database that VLAN 10 is deleted. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So now VLAN 10 is deleted from this layer 2 network. So no one can have any access of these two servers or their services. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And that's why we need transparent mode switch. That's why we need transparent mode switch. Clear? VTP transparent mode. We can add, delete or edit VLANs. In transparent mode, we can add, delete or edit VLANs, okay? It is also a default mode of some Cisco switch. We can create normal and extended range VLANs. It is known as standalone switch. it cannot generate VTP updates. It can receive VTP updates and relay that update to the next switch without updating its own database. Clear?
Yes, sir.
It stores its VLAN database in flash memory in VLAN.dat file as well as in running configuration. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So we can save it in startup configuration also.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
Now what is the advantage? How do we take the advantage of this? Switch 1, switch 2 and switch 3. It is in server mode. It is in transparent mode and it is in client mode, and all these switches have same VTP domain name. Okay.
Mm. Mm.
We have two servers in this switch. Server 1 and server 2, and they are in VLAN 10. And we have VLAN 10, VLAN 20 in switch 1, VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 in switch 2 also.
Mm.
Because once we create VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 in switch 1, VTP propagates this information to switch 2.
Yes.
Switch 2 without updating its own database propagate that information to switch 3.
Mm.
And switch 3 updates its own database with that information, because switch 3 is in client mode and having same domain name, same VTP domain. Okay.
Mm. Mm.
But switch 2 doesn't update its database because it is in transparent mode. So we have to create manually VLAN 10 in switch 2 and make these two servers as a member of VLAN 10.
Mm.
Now consider the same scenario. Here I have switch 4, from an attacker The attacker makes a trunk link, establish a trunk link with switch 3, and also knows the domain name, and the attacker execute the command no VLAN 10. What will happen? Vtp provides this message to switch 3 through this trunk link.
Yes.
Because of same domain name, switch 3 will update its database and remove VLAN 10 from its database. Switch 3 propagates this message to switch 2 through this trunk link. But because switch 2 is a transparent mode switch, it will just forward that message without updating its database, without updating its own database to switch 1. Because of having same domain name, switch 1 also update its database and delete VLAN 10. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So the servers is still in VLAN 10 now. It is also possible that these servers is accessed by some other branches through internet by some other users. In our last scenario, if the VLAN 10 is deleted from switch 2, which is in client mode, the users of other branches will face problem. They will not get any service from these two servers. Okay?
Yes.
But in this scenario, if this switch is connected to router or the internet, and via internet thousands of users are getting services from these two servers, the entire process will not be interrupted. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Any doubt?
No, sir.